quiet room and fewer people. I'm guessing it's post-lunch syndrome like we were talking about. If you guys want to move up, that'd be great. But hopefully this will be exciting and engaging, given we're talking about negotiations, which is, I'm sure, everyone's fun topic. Just by a show of hands, how many of you here actually like negotiating?
Everybody who's in sales, I guess.
Okay, that's maybe 4 or 5 of you. How many of you feel uncomfortable when you have to negotiate? You can be honest. I'll raise my hand. I don't think it's that much fun. But I guess all of us have to do it as part of our jobs in some form or the other, whether it's sales or otherwise. And I'm sure we've all done it through our journeys and careers here. So I'll start with a small story of mine, and then I'll invite the panel to sort of give their own experiences. I've never thought negotiating was fun. My first job, I never negotiated. When I was made an offer, I just accepted because I thought, I don't think I should. I don't know what my manager is going to perceive it to be. Will they think about me as she's too aggressive, too bossy, asking too many questions even before she started? Is this an offer I'm making to her and she should be happy about it? Now, this was 15 years ago. Hopefully things have changed now. I don't have that fear or the apprehension anymore, and I don't think anyone should. We should all be standing up for ourselves. So, I think it'd be interesting to hear stories from the panel of what they think. Have they struggled with negotiations? What has been their story of what's got them out of that shell and wanting to negotiate and fight for themselves, really? Do you want to start, Sushma?
Sure. So, yeah, negotiating is not second nature to at least me. And more so negotiating for myself. However, being in the investing space, you're constantly negotiating with all kinds of stakeholders, and that's something I have never shied away from. However, when it came to negotiating for myself, whether it was negotiating a better salary, a better role, I would always shy from it, right? Because as she said, people perceive you as very aggressive if you go and ask for things. Of course, over the last 18 years, I have learned the better of it, and I do know that if you do not ask for something, you'll never get anything. So, I don't think we should shy away from negotiating. It is not easy, it is not fun, but it's something that needs to be done.
I think as you were mentioning, right, I think when I got my initial job, I was just happy that someone hired me and I got a job, right? And as most people would agree here, we are just happy getting what we have at the moment because we are worried about what the other person is going to think of us, right? Oh, you're asking too much or what you're not asking. But then what you realize over a period of time is you have to negotiate for yourself all through. It is not just professionally, right? I mean, if you're married, you have a husband, there is some sort of negotiation that you need to do there as well, right? To accommodate each other's needs. And then when I moved into venture capital, I realized I'm also negotiating, your deals and the terms, and you're trying to get the best for yourself everywhere. And as you rightly said, it all begins with, not shying away and taking that first step, and you need to be asking for it, right? And I went through this phase where I thought, okay, I'm going to negotiate. I can't remember which TED talk, but I watched a TED talk where the speaker talks about, how all you need to do sometimes is just ask. And then I started over-asking everywhere. I'm like, okay, I'm going to ask. I think I'm worth it, and I know what I deserve, and I'm going to just keep asking. And at some point, I think it's important for us to take a step back and realize what's really important, and where is it really worth negotiating and asking for, and being very reasonable about it. And now I'd like to think I'm in a good place, personally and professionally, in terms of my negotiation and asks.
That's good to know. Shilpa, what about you?
I completely concur with what Sushma and you said. Me as a finance person have always been negotiating at all levels, but at some point of time when it comes to negotiating for yourself, asking for yourself, I have been shying away. And I have been told by several people, you have been short selling yourself. And I don't know when, but a few years back I did realize this. And as she rightly pointed out, it's all about asking, and you realize if you ask, it's better than, you would be in a position if you would not. So it's always go out and ask, and always beware about what you bring to the table, because if you are aware about what you bring to the table, the ask will be, automatically something which, the people at the other end would value and therefore, agree to something like that. So it makes the negotiation not a real negotiation, but actually just showing a mirror to someone else.
So Nandita, when you've been negotiating with people for quite some time now, have you ever heard somebody say that you're being too bossy? Maybe you're very aggressive, and bossy is never a good term, right? People look at you in a very, very negative light. I don't think it's that way. You have that Sheryl Sandberg very famous quote of saying women, little girls who are called bossy should really be told they have leadership skills. I tell my daughter that all the time because I think she does have that. Have you faced situations like that before?
So first of all, I'm just so glad to see that practically everybody on this panel shares a very similar experience to what I would have in terms of being able to negotiate well when it comes to work-related stuff, and it's just so difficult when you have to negotiate something for yourself. But to answer your question on, what's been, yes, absolutely, and I say this in the context, and this is a largely women audience, and I say this in the context of being in a male-dominated industry where you're constantly compared to your counterparts who are normally lauded for showing aggression, and really put on a pedestal, and that sort of accelerates their career, it puts them on a faster growth path, etc. But without wanting to sound like a feminist, and I'm surely not one, I'm definitely not one. I think I do believe that men have a head start in some of this in terms of them, by their very nature, right? They are a more confident species. But I think the story ends there. Women, once we start off, we tend to catch up very quickly. So the head start that men have in some of this is very, very quickly bridgeable, and that's been my personal experience. So I have always taken a comment like that with a pinch of salt, because I know it's being said in the context of a comparative individual who could be a male counterpart. And I do believe that deep down, that distinction doesn't really lie. It is anecdotal, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of instances where that's kind of come about. But I don't think I've personally been so impacted by it, because at the end of the day, it is a level playing field for everybody. And the head start that men tend to naturally have is something that no longer exists, and we catch up very quickly. I realized that 3-4 years into my career that I could make that jump very quickly. And I do think that it's at this time where there are a lot of women, a lot of freshers coming into this space. There is a lot that we can do based on the experience that we have to actually help them bridge that gap faster.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. A few years ago when you'd sit in a room like this, there'd be fewer women. Now there are more. I think more women are speaking up for themselves, and the inner self-confidence needs to come out, right? Have you guys found ways in which you think your self-confidence has improved over time? Because that's a huge factor in how you negotiate. Like you rightly said, we do tend to undermine ourselves. We short sell ourselves all the time. And this is a story for most women, not just you.
Completely.
Right? So do you think there's something that you've done differently that has helped you boost your own confidence?
Yeah, so you just need to internalize everything that you bring to the table. When you do that, you understand and value yourself, and the more you value yourself, you can sell yourself better. So you need to internalize your strength, your weaknesses, and just be truthful to that. And I would say that it just becomes a lot more easier to say that, okay, this is the value that I bring to the table, and I'm worth it.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to add?
So I'll let you all into a secret. When you go to the table to negotiate, the other person sees a woman or a girl or whatever. But when you are sitting there, you are just going there to do the best possible deal for yourself, right? So you keep the gender aside when you're negotiating. But the other person will always be nice to you because you're a woman. Use that. That's our advantage we have.
So I just like to add to that. So one of the things that we talk a lot about is challenges for women in VC or challenges for women in entrepreneurship, right? I think what's very important is to first believe that you're an entrepreneur, or first believe that you're an investor, and not let your primary identity, which is of being an entrepreneur, supersede your gender identity, right? I think that's very important. So to answer your question, yeah, it's a change in perception itself, right? And I think on constantly talking about, the gender or, your background, your pedigree, where you come from, right? I mean, these are things that really brings down your spirit, right? It hampers your spirit and how you look at yourself, right? So if you think of yourself as an investor first or an entrepreneur first, in fact, like she said, I think it's the best time to be a woman today, right? I think there's so many advantages of being a woman, and I think we all have to make use of that opportunity. So, yeah.
Okay. The other thing I've seen is that men are never shy, right? No matter how much or how little they know, they always stand up and they're ready with the BS when they need to be. Women are quiet. Even in a room here, if I asked a question, and if there were as many men than women, I could bet the men would be standing and talking more than women. That's what typically happens, right? We are afraid to leave our little comfort zone and move out of that. And I think that's happening more and more so now. But I'm sure you guys have stories of what got you out of your comfort zone. What is that one little thing that pushed you out and made you do what you should be doing today?
Personally, I think for me, it all starts with the mind, right? It's all about how you're believing in yourself. So, especially when you're in the world of entrepreneurship, right? You're investing in so many entrepreneurs. Essentially, what you're doing is you're taking chances on other people's stories, right?
Yeah.
Or other people's ideas. At some point, at least 3 years ago, I was like, when am I going to take a chance on myself, right? When am I going to bet on myself that I can do this and I can move forward? So yeah, I think it all starts with the mind, a mindset, and how you view yourself and how you think you view of your potential. You're right. I think men think that they can go achieve the world. In fact, there was this big study that was done saying both men and women have great potential to go identify a market opportunity. But a woman believes less that she can go build that as a company or as an entrepreneur. Not because somebody told her she can't, she just believes that, I don't think I can do it. But they both are equally good in identifying an opportunity, but taking that leap of faith and taking a chance on yourself, women usually don't take that chance on themselves. It's all about self-doubt, right? I mean, I think we need to get rid of self-doubt, and we all need to take a chance on ourselves.
Yeah, that's very true.
If I could just add to that,
please.
One thing that at least I believe has worked for me always is how secure are you in what you do. I think we tend to get too hard on ourselves. We tend to think that I have to be 100% good at everything, every aspect of my job, and I don't think that works. Normally, I would think that the 80-20 principle applies here too. Try and do your best. Of course, while if you're good at 100% of what your job really demands you to be, great, go for it. But if you can't, strive to be really good at a few things that could, if I had to quantify it, at least go up to 75-80% of what comprises of it. Collaborate for the rest of the 20%, right? You can win through other strengths as well. And that really plays up your confidence, because as long as I know I'm really comfortable in my skin, I'm really comfortable in what I know the best, I'm able to do a great job of selling myself. And I've seen that play out time and again in conversations with me, where if the minute you tend to get insecure about things you don't know, it puts you on a back foot, and that always results in a bad negotiation or a bad outcome for you.
Yes, I think that's very true, and you touched on a nice point, which is women tend to take things more personally.
Yeah.
I think we internalize everything. A comment made in passing is taken in with as much seriousness as we take anything else, and then that affects everything else that follows. So we have to find a way to build those barriers where we don't necessarily take those things personally. And you got to, like she said, leave the gender aside, just speak for yourself. When I was coming back from maternity leave, I was scared. I'm sure anyone who's had kids here knows when you have a newborn in your hand and you look at that child and you go, what am I supposed to do with this now? Right? And you want to come back to work, and that's a really scary thought. I spoke to my male colleagues, I spoke to mentors, I spoke to a lot of people, and everyone said, you're in investment banking. Either you come back or you drop out. There's nothing in between. There's nothing called a flexible work arrangement. You're even crazy to bring that up. You're going to get fired the next day. And I thought about it, and I was like, wait, if I don't speak for myself and if I don't ask, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to say, leave, right? But I'm the one who's losing at the end of it. I at least got to take that one step forward and ask the question. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't. And I did. I asked the question and I got what I wanted. I've been fortunate. I don't think a lot of people have. And especially when you're coming back from breaks like that, it's much harder to get back in the workforce. And so I always encourage people, when you want to come back, ask the question, right? I don't know if you guys have stories, and Sushma, you have kids, so do you have situations like this that have happened to you as well?
So I have 2 boys, and when I went on my, so the first mat break I took, I did take a year off, so it was a break year, and for me to get back into work, everyone asked questions like, you've taken 1 year break, how will you work now, and you have a baby, will you be able to manage? In my head, I'm thinking, I didn't go brain dead. I just delivered a baby, that's all. I still can think, I'm still intelligent, I can still do what I have always been doing. So, of course, that was the biggest hurdle for me to get back into the workforce. So, I will not recommend taking a break year. It does not work in our country for whatever reason. So the second time round, I was obviously already working, and there was a 3-month mat break at that time. And unfortunately, I could only take 45 days off. Not because they asked me to come back, it's because work demanded it out of me to come back. So yes, I mean, both ways works. Some works better. People have good, ecosystems at home to support them. Some don't. But I don't think you should ever think, oh, am I worth it? Or can I still do it? Or have I lost it because I've had a baby? No. You always have it in you. You can still do whatever you want to do if you want to do it.
Completely agree. You're not brain dead. You were the same person. You bring the same skill sets to the table. So, baby or no baby, it's,
Correct.
And I think, the current situation is so people ask less of those questions. They still do, but less of it. And I would say this is a very, very good time to be in there. And, now it's like a 6-month maternity break. But yes, it's a good time to be in there.
I have a view on the 6-month mat break. While all of us were celebrating 6 months, this male colleague of mine, a very senior mentor, walks up to me and says, it's really sad they made it 6 months. So I said, why do you say that? It's so good, women can spend more time with their kids. And he says, people will stop hiring women now because of this.
Yeah, that's true.
And I started seeing it in all of my portfolio companies. It was the unsaid rule. We like women, but not in main roles. We'll take them in, a side role where there is enough redundancies even if she were to go away. So it's a double-edged sword all the time.
That's true.
No, I think that's true. But again, I think just going back to negotiating for yourself, this is the place where you have to negotiate for yourself, and you've got to build those good points of why you're still a good hire. And there is a wall. There is this wall, whether we like it or we don't, that we need to break through, right? And you've got to build a case for yourself of why you are the right person for the role. You're the right person to come back to that role and not be replaced or made redundant. And it's a lot of work on our side, but we got to do that.
Yeah.
Have you guys had situations where you've had to negotiate, a simple case like a pay raise, right? What do you think has worked?
Fortunately for me, I haven't done a pay raise negotiation very recently, in the recent past. But I remember doing it when I was joining an organization earlier in the past. I don't think at that point of time, possibly I was not so confident enough. And it was like, take it or leave it. I think it would have been much different if I were to do that negotiation today, because with experience, with that confidence, it works much better. But the key is, believe in the value that you bring to the table and go in with confidence. That's where, you get what you ask for.
Okay.
I think I've also been fortunate. I think I've at least it's been to my satisfaction so far. But yeah, sometimes you got to ask, and sometimes it's beyond pay, right? You're asking for other things around
absolutely.
it, right? Like you were saying, it could be maternity leave, or it could be, ESOPs to, carry, or whatever that is, right? So there are a lot of other things that you can ask. But yeah, I think any reasonable ask I would think is always welcome. So yeah, I've made my share of asks, and so far it's been okay, I guess.
Okay. Do you have any stories to say where you've had to ask for something outside the
Guilty
box?
as charged, but I think for me it's been a case of procrastination. So I've postponed it until the time I know I sort of can't do without having the conversation.
Sure.
So not proud of it, but I think I'm getting better at it.
Okay. I think that's the case with many. You're not the only one. I think
So
we
I
all
would just like to add on to that. I still see that happening. So I have in my team a guy and a lady, similar experience. The lady is much smarter than the guy. Okay, and they were hired around the same time by me. The guy negotiated hard for his salary, and the lady didn't.
Yeah.
And she was anyways coming at a lower pay scale compared to the guy, but she took what she, was offered, saying that, okay, X plus percentage jump, etc., etc. But now that I see the value that she brings to the table, I at least take those efforts to make sure that in a few years, there have to be a pay parity between the two people. So we as women need to be, mindful of the fact that when we come to that situation, we empower those people and have those conversations with the ladies around to say that, you possibly deserve much more than you are getting.
And I do think we are, as a corporate unit, getting better at it. I mean, I do believe that it's far less frequent now where people have to really go and demand for pay parity. I mean, maybe it's an outlier, but I do believe that as an organization, as a unit, we are getting better at it. I don't know if it's specific to financial services or it's the same in other industries, but I do think we're getting better at it.
I completely agree with you that, women don't ask, right? So that's why you don't get. But I think with more and more women in leadership roles now, I think we are now in a good place to fight for, the others who are coming into the workforce. If not fight, at least counsel them and tell them that it's okay to ask, right? Most of, my colleagues who join the workforce, who are new to the whole corporate culture, they don't know what is right and what is wrong. They are shy. They are not as confident as they will eventually become. And so I think it's important for all of us to play the role of mentors and, pull them up and bring them up to speed much quicker than probably what we all took to get there.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point because men have this whole, bro culture and brotherhood and all of that, and that's been going on for ages, right? And women haven't necessarily stood up together and supported each other. So it is high time we start doing that, and especially as you see newer folks come in, supporting them, and hopefully it's a lot better than when we started off.
Yeah.
Right? Negotiating for yourself is great in the professional workplace. It's always uncomfortable, difficult. I don't think it gets any easier when you translate that back home, right? I don't think negotiating for your personal self is any easier either. But we all do it, and we all do it on a daily basis with our spouses, with our in-laws, with parents, with kids all the time, and you figure this out. Have you guys had any personal stories you'd want to share about that?
That's like on a daily basis when you have a child. You have to negotiate on a daily basis whether I can have a phone or an iPad or I can go here or there. So that's a negotiation that you do on a daily basis. But the good part is, I would say the good part would be if you could translate those learnings and bring it to the corporate world and say, it's as easy as what we do back home.
Yeah.
I think the question to be asked there really is, do you feel more in control of the negotiations that you do in your personal capability versus when you do it professionally? I don't know. Maybe.
I think I can negotiate term sheets like to the dozen, but I cannot negotiate with my boys. I give up. That's one thing I cannot do. It's not easy.
Of course it's not.
Yeah, I have 2 little kids, and they gang up on me, and I'm sure your boys do the same. So it's not like negotiating with one, you're negotiating with 2 all the time, and much easier to negotiate in the professional world than the personal world.
At least there's a logical person sitting across you, right? So,
yeah, I agree. Have you guys, over your careers, sort of seen your own styles change? And maybe yours has changed over time from when you started to now. So, for the folks that are just getting started off in their career, is there, one piece of advice all of you would like to give that, there's one thing that you should make sure you do and you start doing this today, it'll help you as you move forward. We can start with you, Sushma.
So, I cannot give advice. Everyone has their life journey to reach where they have to reach. But my only 2-bit would be ask. It's okay to ask. Nobody is judging you. And even if they do, it doesn't matter. So just get out of your shell and go ahead and ask whatever you want to ask.
Okay. Shalini?
For me, I think ultimately, I think I've become the person that I am because of the people that I surrounded myself with in the last 7 to 8 years, I would say. So it's very important that you choose the right people around you who help bring the best version of you. It could be colleagues, it could be friends, or it could be any network that you build, right? It will enrich your career or you as a person itself, your intellect and everything, right? So I would say, and invest in your identity capital, right? What is it that you can do? What is it that you can do for yourself that will really enrich you as a person? How does it feed into your perspective? What makes you really unique? And I think all of that really comes with all the experiences and all the crazy adventure that you bring upon yourself, and of course the people as well, right? So I would say, invest in your identity capital much early on. I wish I knew that when I was 18. I learned that much later. So meet more people, read more, watch some interesting talks, and and I think that's what will really help you leap forward, because it'll all culminate together over a period of time.
Okay. Shilpa?
I would say you just need to be confident about your capabilities, the value that you bring to the table. And once you are, when you go with that thought process, you're just, there's no awkwardness when you go about negotiating about, be it your salary, position, or something else. So just be confident about the value that you bring to the table. That will take you to the last mile.
Yeah, so I think, similar to what Sushma said, one really is, make mistakes. I think be okay with making mistakes, because only when you make mistakes, it may sound cliched, but I think the biggest learnings for everybody, including myself, have come from the mistakes that I've made. And the second is, I'm a very analytical person. So for me, what's always worked is to say that, can I quantify the downside of what my actions would be? Whether it's by speaking and saying what I needed to say, or by asking, or by negotiating. And very often you'd find that if you've been able to quantify the downside, there's a very high chance of you going ahead and saying that, it's fine. The downside looks like something I can live with, but I can go and have the conversation. So that's really personally worked for me, at least.
Okay. So ask, surround yourself with the right kind of people, build your own identity, be confident in anything that you do. It doesn't matter what you're feeling inside. I think what others perceive you as is just as important. Just be okay with making mistakes. That's the best way to learn. And don't worry, the worst case is really not that bad. I think we all think the worst case is so bad that we're not even willing to try. So, I think that sums up everything we've been talking about here. Do you guys want to add anything else, or we can open it up to questions?
Fantastic summary.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Something
If you guys have questions, you want to just, share some personal anecdotes, please do.
Nothing to do with the topic that we're discussing. I'm Aditya. I met some of you, and I represent AIWMI. I have a question related to what we're trying to do here. When we conceptualized this Women in Finance thing 2 years ago, we've been doing a lot of events on alternatives, family offices, etc. And we've seen industry really, really supporting it. When we conceptualized this event 2 years ago, we had the likes of Naina Lal Kidwai and Vanisha and some really good speakers. Everyone said, wow, this is something which was much needed, women in finance, we should do this, do that, do that. Maybe 30 people turned up. Today, morning, we had a full house because we had awards. Again, we received terrific response from everyone saying that, boss, this is a very good event, we all should be there, we should support this, that. And we can see the room right now, right? What you think, I mean, you all are very, very accomplished female professionals. I want to ask you, my job is to create communities. I want to create community, enhance professional standards in AIWMI. But a women in finance kind of an event really beats my logic. When everyone is saying, yes, this is needed, it really troubles me to see this kind of a hall. So what else are we supposed to do? What should we be doing? Other than this, of course, this is just a gathering, but you want to kind of put it in a more structured format where all of us are working together, not only towards women working in financial services, but also for women outside. Because I think finance is a very, very empowering tool which every woman should know and should have. So my question is to the panelists as well as to the audience here. What do you think should we be doing as an association, as a membership community, to get more interest, to get more participation?
I think you need to make it more inclusive versus just calling it out as women, because, you know, what all said and done, you know, if you go and look at the financial services, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's still male dominated. Okay, so if you really want a house full, you need to have, you know, the male sides also coming in. Otherwise, you know, and they, you know, whatever we may feel, they are still running the show.
I'll answer you. Sorry, I'm interrupting. We do a lot of events, and always it's usually good full houses. Today we did a campaign for top 100 women, and we had a category for men in that.
I know, you told
I mentioned this, right?
Yeah.
Supporting. We thought we were going to select 25 men, and that should not be a problem, who are supporting gender diversity. We got 9 nominations. For women,
It's the first time.
no, it's not a question of first time. If there are 460 females who can nominate themselves. I'm sure there were more men who deserved to be nominated, but neither the men were not interested or the others did not take it. So my question is, I don't think it's about men or women. See, the topic is women in finance. Of course, we've not said, asked men not to come. Everyone is free to come, right? My question is, how do we make it more practical? Because ultimately, why are all here? We want it to achieve certain purpose. So if you could, any of you could give us some real practical inputs in terms of, okay, what do we do that next year we're all, you know, sitting here till 6 o'clock and no one is leaving? So what all those things should, I mean, just open to everyone here.
So generally when we have these sessions, what I've seen over the years, there are very few women, even when we are like looking at it, if it's an evening cocktail, you will not have that woman go for the cocktail, but they'll go home because the children are at home. So there are responsibilities for women. There are very few who will say, no, I will attend the cocktail and I'll also attend the children later. Even here, if you look at it, I don't know how many are there, but I think that sense that this is very important for us has to be communicated to all of us. We have to know this is important, you're organizing all this for us. We need to be here. But there's so much else to be done at work. If we come here, then that work will suffer and we'll go late home. That going home late is something which is very difficult for women. That is one thing which is there. But networking or discussing, I think you have an informal group. All women will contribute and discuss. They are very purpose driven. They will immediately help. I have never found a woman saying, I can't help you. So all women are ready to help. You reach out, but they're not the ones to be networking. So they don't think it's important to spend time networking.
But I think that is what she's trying to change, because as everybody knows that networking is the key. For people to be successful, that networking plays a very, very critical role. And my suggestion to you, Aditya, and I think you are doing a brilliant job, it's just that people goes, that the group that, and these are very, very people who have proved themselves, achieved something, if you can form a group of the same people who have attended this, make them interact more often, so that once we have something like this, that you know these people. So maybe I'm meeting them for the first time, maybe second time these guys will not be there. So we'll not have a connectivity, which typically if you go to other seminars, people know each other. If I go to an event of my industry, then I know 50-60% of the people. I'll be motivated to be there because I can interact them more informally. Here 99% of the people I may not know. So if we keep doing these events and same people keep coming in, contributing to each other, I think that will make it a hugely successful thing for you.
maybe a half-day session would be better
Yeah.
than a full-day session.
I was thinking of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think doing the half-day session is probably better. And do the awards in the end.
Or maybe use the other half, doing some, actually having some working groups. Have some women who are accomplished in certain, areas come and talk to a smaller group of, let's say, professionals who are just entering the workforce on specific topics, have a working group around it, or something like that possibly.
Yeah.
One more thing, a lot of people in the panel have spoken about mentoring. It's so difficult to find a good mentor. How do you find a mentor who will help you? That's the problem that a lot of people, at least because if I interview, nobody has a mentor. It's by chance that you happen to meet somebody who you think is a mentor. So if you can prepare something wherein you have access to these people, if they can come and talk, what she's rightly mentioning, I think it is going to be great use to all the young guys.
Sure, I'll take that. Certainly. Thanks. So, and also I wanted to introduce, I think 3 of our panelists are our 40 under 40 winners also from the first year, if I'm getting it right. Richa, right?
Yeah.
Richa and Shalini. We're meeting only for the first or second time, so I couldn't recognize you earlier. So, so this is a second initiative. We've been doing 40 under 40 alternative investment professionals, and 3 of them happened to be on that inaugural list last year. So anyways, unless any other questions, I think we can wind up the session.
I just have one thing to add to her. She said that you should never take a break in your service.
I didn't say never. I said people
Sort of
will look
said
at
you
it
should
very negatively here.
So I think it's a choice that people should do. I had taken 6 years break and I came back and put in maybe a lot of effort. Yeah, things have changed. What was there earlier when you come back 6 years have changed. But I think it's up to you to come back. And you need to enjoy life. So I think it's fine to take a choice.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. I'd like Mr. Aditya Gadge to please give them a small token of appreciation.